Hello, teachers, parents, and educational leaders, and welcome to this episode of Breaking Down the B.E.S.T. Now, during this episode, you will get a peek into the members-only area where I have tons of resources to help you make math fun, make it click, and make it stick. There should be a link somewhere around this video where you can learn more. All right, now that we got that out of the way, let's get to it, and let's break down the standard. Welcome to Breaking Down the B.E.S.T, a video series dedicated to breaking down Florida's best standards for math. So grab something to write with and maybe even a snack. This looks good. And don't forget to put a smile on your face. There you go. I see you. And let's dive into today's best standard. Hey everyone. My name is Sarah McCarthy and I am so excited that you are joining me as we break down the following standard. Today's standard is MA.4.FR.2.4 and the standard says to extend previous understanding of multiplication to explore the multiplication of a fraction by a whole number or a whole number by a fraction. In the past, in 3rd grade and in 4th grade, students have learned that multiplication means that we have groups of equal things. The key word there being of. Of will be used a lot in multiplication. So again, and we're multiplying by fractions by whole numbers and whole numbers by fractions. So we have 2 examples here. It says Shanice thinks about finding the product of 1/4 of times 8, which would be 1/4 of 8, by imagining having 8 pizzas that she wants to split equally with her 3 friends. So she and each of her friends, she plus her 3 friends, so that's 4, will get 2 pizzas since 1/4 of 8 equals 2. So here's a model for that. If there are 8 pizzas here, and then you kind of divide those out. So each person here you see can get 2 pizzas. Whereas in the other example, it says Lacey thinks about finding the product of 8 times 1/4 by imagining having 8 pizza boxes, each with 1/4 slice of pizza left. That's what this model shows. 8 pizza boxes with 1/4 of a pizza left. If she put them all together, she would have a total of 2 whole pizzas, since 8 times 1/4 equals 8/4, which is equivalent to 2. So there's 2 different examples of how we can put these multiplication by fractions and whole numbers into real world settings. Okay, by the way, this document that I'm marking up all over is not something that I created. This is something that the Florida Department of Education releases to the public. And in these Breaking Down the B.E.S.T episodes, I'm just showing you how I break down and process through the standard to make sense of it in order to create resources that are strategically aligned to the standard in your taking on the B.E.S.T membership. So we'll spend about half of the video breaking down the standard, and then the other half will pop over to the website and see all of the resources available for this standard at mccarthymathacademy.com, okay? All right, so benchmark clarifications. Instruction includes the use of visual models or number lines, and the connection to the commutative property of multiplication, all of which are used in taking on the B.E.S.T, which I'll show you in a little bit. It says within this benchmark, the expectation is not to simplify or use the lowest terms. However, whenever there's an opportunity to make sense of that and to show how we can simplify, I usually take it, because the more number sense that we can build with our students to showcase that relationship early on, the better that they will be in the later grades. This says that fractions multiplied by a whole number are limited to less than 1. In other words, when we're multiplying a fraction, like right here we have 3 1/3, that we eventually can multiply by 2. We can actually break that apart using a property of multiplication. So turning these multiplication between a fraction and a whole number into fractions that are less than 1. It also says that all denominators are limited to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 10, 12, 16, and 100. So what other benchmarks in 4th grade are aligned to this one? We have MA.4.NSO.2.1, which is where we're recalling multiplication and division facts. And then 4.AR.1.3 is whole number by fraction real world problem. So everything that we just saw in the example would be kind of more focused on that 4.AR.1.3 standard. However, we're trying to see what it would look like with visual models. So a lot of times creating that real world situation makes it easier to understand. So really this standard FR.2.4 and the AR.1.3, those mesh really well together. So throw them together when you can, okay? An equation contains an equal sign, so we have expressions on both sides of the equation. And here we have an expression, and as you can see, there is no equal sign present. We're just highlighting the operation that's taking place there. So knowing the difference between an equation and an expression is important. Where are they coming from in third grade? Well, in third grade, we had 3.NSO.2.2, which was understanding multiplication and division. Understanding that multiplication was groups of equal things will help students this time when they're multiplying groups of fractions, right? And here, 3.FR.1.2 was the sum of unit fractions, repeatedly adding those same fractions. So if we had, for instance, when we had 3/4, we could change that into 1/4 plus 1/4 plus 1/4, which equals 3 times 1/4. Now this is new for fourth grade, but you can see this right here for third grade. You can see how it's going to connect to what we're about to do in fourth grade. MA.4.FR.2.2 is multiplying fractions, so stepping it up from what we have now, which is whole numbers times fractions and vice versa, and also into next year being multiplying fractions. 2.3 is predicting the relative size of fractions, which in this one I put a little star here because when we're multiplying 3 times 1/4 like we had here, we're multiplying it by a fraction here less than 1. When we're showing that, it would be awesome to highlight that. Okay, when we get to that answer of 3/4, notice how we went from 3 down to 3/4 because we multiplied by a fraction that was less than 1. Our product is reduced compared to what it was with 3. This is a huge part for this one right up here, which we'll get to in 5th grade. So if students can kind of start to see that relationship now, multiplying a whole number by a fraction less than 1, how it decreases the product, that would be awesome to get them ready for 5th grade. Purpose and instructional strategies section, let's see what jumped out. This one says, the purpose of this benchmark is to connect previous understanding of whole number multiplication concepts, like we talked about with those 3rd grade benchmarks, and also to apply them to multiplication of fractions, which we'll get to in 5th grade. This is kind of that bridge between 3rd grade and to 5th grade. It says that this builds on the students' work of adding fractions with like denominators. We need to be using fraction models and drawings to show understanding, like area models, number lines, set models, or equation, which taking on the B.E.S.T does. It says that students need to understand that when multiplying by a whole number by a fraction, the most important idea is that the whole number describes the number of objects and the fraction describes the size of each object. So here, like 5 times 3/4, we have 5 groups of 3/4. But when we're flipping it around to multiply 3/4 times 5, it's helpful to think about it as the portion of, like it says right here, 3/4 portion of 5 miles. Now, the cool thing is because of the commutative property of multiplication, it's a little bit easier to take this one and flip it around to draw 5 groups of 3/4 than it is to show what 3/4 of 5 miles is. And I'll explain a little bit more of what I mean when we get to this in I believe it's video number 2. Okay, this is exploring patterns of what happens to the numerator when a whole number is multiplied by a fraction. Will help students make sense of multiplying fractions in grade 5. When multiplying whole numbers by mixed numbers, students can use the distributive property or write the mixed number as a fraction greater than 1. So we were given this example right here. 2 times 6 1/3. And in the benchmark clarifications, it said that, let's go back up to it. Right here, limited to less than 1. Fractions multiplied by a whole number are limited to fractions that are less than 1. Now I want to show you something here, because 6 1/3 is a fraction that is greater than 1. It's a mixed number that's greater than 1. However, because of the distributive property of multiplication, we can actually break this into 2 times 6 first, and then 2 times 1/3. So there we are getting that multiplication of 2 times a fraction that's less than 1, and then we can add them back together there. So I did create video lesson number 3 just in case this was going to be relevant with this standard. As you know, as of creating this, the BEST standards are still new to us. So I made a video lesson for that just in case. Now here, common misconceptions. It says that students may multiply both the numerator and the denominator by a whole number. And I said, yes, I have seen that happen a lot as a teacher. That's why visual models are super important here. And it says students may be confused by the fact that a fraction times a whole number often represents something quite different than a whole number times a fraction, even though the commutative property says that the order does not affect the value. So I wrote here that it is more challenging to model this way, which is why we do use the commutative property of multiplication in taking on the BEST. But at the end, we do flip it back to say how it was a portion of something. It says that students should relate fraction multiplication to repeated addition, which we will do too. So here we can see this in action. How many 2/5 are there in 12/5? Use a visual model. Here we have a fraction times a whole number, so what's the product? And choose all the ways to express this product, looking at all of these answer choices, okay? And right here, just ignore all that. I was marking something up to create a test for you, so we'll just erase that. All right, I think that is it for walking through the standard that way. Let's go ahead and hop over to the website so you can see what you have access to with your membership. All right, so here we are at mccarthymathacademy.com. We're going to click Members, enter here, taking on the BEST, 4th grade, the FR strand, and scrolling all the way down to multiply whole numbers by fractions and mixed numbers, putting that there just in case. The first page that you open up to is your bronze resources. These have the video lessons and the student guides. You can see the first video says multiply a whole number by a fraction. The second video lesson is multiply a fraction by a whole number. And the third video lesson is multiply mixed numbers by a whole number. So right here we have 4 groups of 2/3. We're representing it using an area model, a number line, and connecting it to repeated addition in the video lessons. The purpose of the bronze resources are to make math fun and to make it click. However, walking away from this, we don't expect that students are going to master it. The way that they're going to master something is to practice it on their own. And that's when the silver resources come into play. So we have the silver right here. Click on printables. All right, and you can see here we've got the bronze video lesson, and the next one that you're going to see is the extra practice. Video lesson, extra practice, video lesson, extra practice. That's how this is available for you to download and print. So here's the video lesson on multiplying a whole number by a fraction. Once they finish that, they can complete the extra practice page on their own, and there is an answer key for this too. Then we have a video lesson, the next video lesson on the bronze page, multiply a fraction by a whole number. And can then extra practice multiplying a fraction by a whole number. Then we had multiply mixed numbers by a whole number. So this is where we're breaking it apart and saying 2 times 4 and then 3/4 times 4, using that distributive property of multiplication to solve. And then extra practice on that. Okay, now we have the math mission. So you can see this is a real world problem in there. It says Tommy drinks 3/4 of a gallon of water each day. How much water will he have consumed after 7 days in gallons? Create a visual area model and a number line to represent the situation. Then part 2, Martha drinks 2/3 of water each day. She says that she drinks 10/15 gallons after 5 days. Explain Martha's errors on the lines below. So they're having to look at what somebody else did, analyze their error, and help to fix it. The last part of the silver plan is the math misconception mystery. You can see that video lesson icon. So all you have to do is click play, and in this video I'll walk you through and your students through the entire process. First, they will solve this problem on their own, and then they will watch as 4 characters, which are just me dressed up in silly costumes, and these 4 characters will solve that same problem. 3 of them will make a mistake that students commonly make, maybe multiplying the numerator and the denominator, for instance, and only 1 character will solve it correctly. So students will discuss, decide, justify their answers, and then fill out their detective report right here. Answer keys for the silver resources are right here. And then the gold plan has access to everything that we've gone over, plus a mini assessment, which is aligned to the standard. You can see a variety of question types here. Okay. And that also includes an answer key, which you can access right there. You also, as a gold member, you also have access to these episodes of breaking down the best for every standard right here with all the resources that we're talking about in this video lesson. So it's a nice little perk of it being right here. These breaking down the best episodes are also available on YouTube. They just contain ads because they're on YouTube. So it's just a nice perk of it being right there. But the highlight feature of the gold plan is definitely McCarthy Math 155 with 155 video lessons. Now you will notice right here it says Common Core Standards. Just so you know, I created Taking on the Best because I knew that McCarthy Math 155 was not going to be enough to support you for the best standards. However, if you've been exploring with the best standards, you know there's a lot from the past from our Common Core standards that are still relevant in these standards today. So if you have students who are really struggling and need extra practice, need extra time to really work with the skills in order to build their math confidence, this is the way to go. So again, 155 videos for each grade. Let's click on 4th grade. You can see that they're broken up into units, and we need to go to fractions, multiplying fractions by a whole. You can see there are 6 additional video lessons that will help your students. We've got multiplying fractions by a whole number with 5 practice problems. Same thing here. And then we've got some word problems right there too. Okay, so it's just more practice to really support your students so they can be the best that they can be. All right, everybody, I think that is it for going over this standard today. I hope that now you feel like, all right, we broke down this standard. I get it now. I know what's expected of my students. I know what it looks like in action. I know what I have access to with my Taking on the Best membership. And I hope that you feel ready to rock and roll. Before we go, let me remind you that what you choose to wake up and do with your life every single day, it really does matter. Thank you so much for all you do to step into the best version of yourself to inspire your students to do the same. And of course, thank you for inviting me into your educational space. I truly love supporting you and your students. I do what I do because I do it for you. And I know that you're busy, so I will see you in a Breaking Down the Best episode real soon, okay? Bye! Okay, so I know that I just said goodbye for now, but I'm gonna ask you to do one more thing, okay? If you enjoyed this episode, please consider sharing it with your teacher friends or other leaders in education. That's how I get to continue doing what I love to do, which of course is supporting you all to the best of my ability. All right, for real now. Bye!